gonna play some zombies in the background, but today we're gonna do a little something different. Normally I got Fro and Cass, doing their thing on the video, but today I thought I'd do a solo video, and it's gonna be a story time video. Ooh, stories. But I do not condone what I'm about to tell, so just getting that right out there. But today's story time is going to be the first time I ever partake in anything like this. This is the first time I ever smoked the ganja, the devil's lettuce, the sticky icky as you will call it. But while I'm talking about the story, I'm just going to do a private game of zombies, just so you don't have to stare at nothing while I talk about this story time. And I'm not going to be using any real names in this story time. It's just going to be me, myself, and I. And I will throw in some random names. So this story time takes place around, I want to say when I was in middle school. Around that time. I just moved to a new town. I was originally living somewhere else, and then I moved because I wasn't really the best child growing up, I guess you could say. So I moved about 2 or 3 times growing up, and when I got to the new town that I was living in, I didn't really smoke. I wasn't a big smoker, I smoked cigarettes every now and then, Again, do not condone doing anything illegal or anything you're not supposed to at that age. So I was probably around, I want to say 13, 14 years old. And me being in a new town, I didn't know anyone. No, I didn't. Your boy Hub knew no one in this new town. So, I tried making friends as fast as I could because I didn't want to be that one kid from out of town that didn't, know anybody. And it was a small town, it was about maybe 200-300 kids that lived in this town. And it was really, really small, So everyone knew each other from growing up. So I was that one new kid that got stared at for the longest time. But it didn't take me too long to find the people that didn't really associate very much, the kind of I don't care crowd. And I guess that should have been my first indicator that this probably isn't the best idea to hang out with these people. But your boy, being your boy, didn't really care. I just wanted to fit in with someone. So, I was hanging out with this one kid. Let's call him Kyle. Let's just call him Kyle. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna give out real names in this story time. And he was what you would call he was a really big punk kid. He didn't really care. He had his own little friend group, and since this was a small town, people didn't really care what they did in this small town, They would break every law imaginable and not give a shit, But, we were talking in lunch, and he brought up the fact that he smoked, and me being me, I didn't really care. I'm like, alright, that's cool, man. You do you. You know what I mean? So, he invited me after school to hang out with a few other people that he knew. And we'll get more into that as the story goes on. And, after school, I lived maybe about hour-long walk from my house, and I always took the bus. So I was thinking to myself, nah, man, I gotta get on the bus, I gotta get home, This was my last... There was only like 2-3 months left in the school year before I was a freshman. And I just wanted to get home. I didn't really care if I got in trouble for not coming home on time, which, again, don't recommend doing this. But, I said, what, screw it. I need friends. I want to hang out with someone. Why not? Let's do it. Let's go. So, he only lived a few blocks away from the school. And I told him, yeah, I'll hang out, but I'm not really, down to smoke. I had maybe 5-6 cigarettes on me. I'm like, I'll smoke my cigarettes, you do you. And, I knew what marijuana was growing up. I just never really cared for it. But, I wasn't against it growing up, I should say. I just never really partook in it. I knew a lot of kids from my hometown that smoked. Never really interested me, but with all the music I heard about it and all the stuff I've seen on YouTube, and I was curious. I'm not gonna lie. I was a curious 14 about to be 15-year-old. I was very curious. So after school, you know, I finish up what I had to do in class, and I really didn't give a fuck about classes because the school year was pretty much over with, you know. Since I just moved, everyone was already so far ahead in their lesson plans and whatever you would say they were finished up with, but so I would mainly just sit, listen to my iPod, listen to some music, I don't know, doing things. And you know, growing up in that small town for the 2-3 years I did, it was weird because they had the middle school and the high school combined into one because it was such a small town. They didn't need a giant building. And you know, at the time I'm like, alright, so I guess I'm really not getting anything new when I go into high school. It's all gonna be the same shit. It's gonna be everything the same, so whatever. But after school, I met up with Kyle, and we walked to his place, and his parents were not really around much, I guess you could say, so you can't really blame the kid for getting into the stuff he did. I guess you can blame the parents, but when they're not around, it's kind of hard to do anything. So he wasn't a bad kid. He was more of the... didn't really have any role models growing up. He really didn't have anything to worry about. So then 2 girls and one of his other friends showed up, and let's just call... there's only one girl I'm going to be talking about. Let's just call her Brandy. I like that. We'll just call her Brandy for this story. Brandy was the one who had the weed at the time. She had the weed. So she's like, yeah, let's go to my uncle's spot. He smokes. We'll go. We'll do that. And I was introduced. She said, hey, what's up? You know, she was a very friendly, but she was not, she didn't have the best reputation, let's say, for what she was involved with. Yeah, let's just say she did not have the best reputation. I think that's the nicest way I can say that. But you know, we get to our uncle's house, and that's where the pure idea of what was going on set in. The peer pressure, might I say, was starting to sink in. You know, again, peer pressure is a bitch, and a lot of people don't get peer pressured, but I did. It was, you know, they kept passing, you know, a bowl back and forth, and eventually, like, you smoke cigarettes, Nathan, you might as well give her a try. You might as well dabble, you know, because you're never gonna fully know until you try. And, you know, the whole walk to her uncle's, to begin with, was... I'm not gonna lie, I had anxiety. I'm like, you know I'm gonna be peer pressure into doing this. And I know, for a fact, I'm probably gonna try it. And, you know, knowing that and having that in mind, when I got to her uncle's, we went out to the porch. Her uncle had a porch. We sat out there, and it wasn't a bad environment, I'll say that. You know, a lot of people talk about their first time they're in a bad environment, they don't feel comfortable. So I have really no excuse for what's about to happen to me, you know, other than my own anxiety-filled, peer-pressured moment of, oh, great. So, it gets to me, and I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, I smoke cigarettes. I know how to inhale smoke. Don't look at me like that, Kyle. I know what I'm doing. So, it gets handed to me. And of course, I was watching the entire time how they were doing it. I was like getting it down to a science. Like, I was taking notes almost in my brain of how I'm gonna do this. Like, alright. He put his little finger on the little holy thing. He lit it. And then right when he inhaled the smoky smoke, he took his finger off the holy hole. You know? So, it gets passed to me. And I copied everything that they did. And I took the biggest hit. And I should not have done this my first time. I should have dabbled it. I should have, like... I could have even gotten away with pretending that I did it. But I took the biggest hit. And all I remember was coughing my ass off. And everyone, there was probably around 5-6 people around, but they're not really relevant. That's why I'm not giving them a name. But they're just laughing their ass off. And, you know, I'm sitting there like, well, I get a buzz when I smoke cigarettes, so I know what I'm expecting when I have a cigarette. So I'm thinking, oh, it's probably just going to be a little buzz. No. Oh, here's where the story really kicks in. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, my whole body just feels light. Like, I mean light. Like, I know explaining this, a lot of people are stoners, so they know what happens, but for me being a kid, on top of peer pressured anxiety, this is why I don't recommend children to do this. I don't recommend anyone to do this just because drugs are bad, okay? But well, I'll get into that later. But so I am lightheaded. I feel like I'm gonna die, and that's because I had no one. I mean, no one to really sit there. All they did was laugh. I did not have like a buddy to like calm me down, because I was like that new kid that they're getting stoned and they're laughing about it. The only one that was nice was Kyle. Kyle was the cool one. He actually liked me, so he took me outside, and I'm freaking out, man. You know, I'm thinking, you know, what about ODing? Because you know, you hear all about ODing, and he's like, dude, I'm talking to him like that too. I'm like, dude, what if I'm ODing? Am I okay? I'm freaking out. And he looked at me, and I will never forget what he said to me. He's like, bro, you can't OD off marijuana, all right? And I promise you're gonna be okay. You know, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice. Like, he generally wanted me to be all right. You know, like it felt like he cared. And he said, you're gonna be all right, man. And then he handed me a skateboard, and he's like, just go for a ride. Just here, just go for a little ride, man. I promise you'll be all good. You'll be good, my guy. And you know, that's what I needed at the time. I didn't need no one laughing at me. And that's when I started relaxing, and I felt happy and relaxed. I'm like, I can see why people do this. I feel great. And then the reason I also was freaking out is because my mouth was so dry. Like, I felt like I was in a desert and I haven't had water in a year. And it was a terrible feeling, and I had no idea what cottonmouth was at the time. All I knew is you smoke and you get high. That's all I knew. I didn't know nothing. You know, I've even embarrassed myself by saying, when this one kid walked up to me, he's like, hey, you want to go smoke some ganj? And I said, no, I only smoke weed. You know, because I was 13 years old, and like, if I was associated with any kind of smoking, I wanted it to be weed, because I knew that was the most friendly of the drugs. The most relaxing, the nicest, the non-hurtful. But, you know, when I started feeling good, and I started skateboarding, I was so happy. I don't think I ever felt that happy. Again, I'm not condoling it. I am not. But I'm just speaking from my personal first-time experience. And, like, I remember walking up to people laughing, like, just random people. I didn't even know who they were. But I was so giddy. But all I remember was being so thirsty, and there was this park that was right next to this kid's house. It was a really gross park. And you know, I am one of those like germaphobes. I don't like putting my mouth on shit in public. I don't like any of that. And there was a water fountain just chilling, you know. So I walk up, and I didn't care if I was a germaphobe. Dude, I probably looked like a dog in a water fountain just drinking that water. Like, it was almost like a blessing in disguise. Like, oh, I needed that water. But that was pretty much it, you know. I rode around, had a fun time, cracked a ton of jokes. And I'm not even lying when I say normally I'm not that funny when I'm, you know, under the influence after that. But I swear to God, I felt like a goddamn comedian. Like, I felt like everything coming out of my mouth was hilarious. And I mean hilarious. But once I got home, I had to do the nice hour-and-a-half walk home. And thank God Kyle let me use his skateboard to get home. Otherwise, that would have been a pain. I will never forget that feeling, though, my first time smoking, of just pure relief. You know, I could feel, like, every bit of the wind hitting my face. I just felt like nothing else mattered at that time. Like, nothing else mattered. It was just bliss. But yeah, I got home and it wasn't bliss no more. My mom took one look at me and she's like, we're gonna have a talk about this. And at the moment, I think she knew that I was already having anxiety beforehand, because I'm sure I looked terrified when I walked into that house, because I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen the moment I stepped inside that house. And I swear to God, I'm surprised I didn't get an ass whooping. But yeah, I got into the house. I went down, laid down, and the coolest thing happened. My mom ordered Domino's. I still remember that. I think she knew. She knew that I was hungry. That I was having a, oh my goodness. That he is having a bad time. He needs food. And that was the best feeling ever, was just eating that food, you know. A lot of people talk about, oh, I really don't get high when I first smoke, you know, but me, oh my goodness, it was something, man, it was something. And, you know, I do suffer from bad anxiety, so I guess you could say that I really doubled up on how I felt, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The next day I went to school, you know, I saw Kyle, and he looked at me, he's like, hey, you feeling any better, my guy? And that's what I liked about Kyle. You know, even after the fact of what happened, he still cared, you know. He asked me how my night was. He asked me how I was feeling, and he said, you know, if you ever want to do it again, you don't have to. And I'm like, you know, and that's kind of where I became a stoner back in high school. You know, I have tons of stories about me and this dude before I moved. But if you want to hear more stories like this, you know, please let me know, because I want to start a story time on this page. I really do. I want to put some backward game or some game clips in and just, you know, just talk about some funny stories. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up that story time, you know. And I know a lot of people like hearing story time videos, so I hope you enjoyed hearing this one, and maybe I can get Cass and Fro into some of these story times, because I feel like they probably got plenty of story times. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. Please like, subscribe, and tell me what you want to watch or what you want to hear. Alright, you guys have a good one. Hub signing off.